You're listening to the Primal Happiness Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you thrive in this crazy modern world. Every Tuesday, we explore the nature of how our minds really work, what exactly the human animal requires to thrive, and how we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. If you're new here and haven't yet taken our free class, then there's no better place to get a jump start on reclaiming your primal happiness. It's where we'll guide you step by step through our antidote to today's modern world. Simply head on over to primalhappiness.co/antidote to get the free class and discover how to thrive without having to move to a planet that's not so crazy as ours. But now, your host, Leanne Brook-Tyler.
Hello, my beautiful people. A huge warm welcome back to the show. In today's crazy modern world, men and women are living shallow, disconnected, and unfulfilling lives. So we created the path for those who are ready to reclaim their wildness and actualize their deepest gifts. And the next way that you can walk that path is by joining our brand new crucible, Waking the Wild Medicine, that starts in January. This is for you if you know you came here to do important, much needed work, but despite all of the years of seeking, you still haven't discovered exactly what it is. If you're clear on what you came here to do, but the normal ways of doing business just don't feel aligned to you and maybe aren't working too well either. If you've been successful creating a living, doing something else, but you know your soul is now calling you towards doing something much deeper. Or if you're already doing your precious soul work, but you know you're now ready to create a previously undreamed of level of impact with it. You'll be joining a potent, intimate circle of sovereign men and women, each of you feeling the call to embody your soul work. During our 6 months together, we will guide you to uncover your deepest soul medicine, know who your people are and what they long for, create your medicinal offering that meets their longing, and become a beacon for your medicine in a way that magnetizes your people to it. If you're feeling called to this journey, if 2021 is the year you will embody and express your deepest soul work, a great place to start is to come join us live for our free Q&A webinar on the topic of money, magic, and medicine. We'll be going deep, answering your questions about how you can make a living being your medicine. We'll also share how myth, archetypes, and magic can be a powerful and also practical part of this path. It's on Friday, the 4th of December at 11 a.m. GMT. And you can get the link for that by coming to join our Facebook group if you're not already a member. And to be honest, I would advise you come and be a member anyway. It's a wonderful place to be, amazing community there. And the link for that is facebook.com/group/primal happiness. If you don't use Facebook, then you could always email us for that link too. And that's at support@primalhappiness.co. Just let us know that you want the link to join the webinar and we'll email you back with all the details you need. Or, of course, if you already know you're ready for Waking the Wild Medicine, you can go and claim your place now at primalhappiness.co/medicine. There are limited places. There's a few left. So if you really want to make sure yours is your place, come join us now. And now into this week's show. It's with Dr. Stephania Sciamano. She is an energy surgeon devoted to truth and embodiment of your rich genius. She spent 9 years in private natural medicine practice before working exclusively with ambitious men and women to increase wealth, vitality, and energy in all its forms. Successful clients who've come into her practice are powerful, experienced healers, creators, and magicians. Yet the elusive cap on their success is frustrating the hell out of them. She believes that powerful people experience a specific set of mental and physical symptoms at higher levels of success, which creates an energetic cap on their havingness. And conventional solutions don't work because they don't address wealth consciousness, masculine/feminine dynamics, the dark side of your power, or how this relates to your genius. Her protocol assesses, arrests, and then reverses the slide. Her clients calm their nerves and lose their mental slumps, become attractive again to themselves and their partners, and create reliable windfalls of cash in their specific genius without the crash. In this show, we spoke about the link between the body, pain, illness, and emotions, and how we can create the energetic flow and fulfillment that we ache for. Let's dive in. Hello, Stephania. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this is really my pleasure. We've just attempted to agree on a topic and then just said, let's just talk about all of it pretty much, haven't we? Because it's just too much and it's all too juicy. Oh, my goodness. So we decided to just start with a bit of understanding of how you've ended up in this incredible work that you do. What I see of you, what you share on Facebook and in your groups, I love and really resonate with so much. Everything. It's not so much, and there's bits that I don't resonate with. I really love your work and where you're coming from. And I know when we spoke before, it was so helpful for me to have an understanding of how you've ended up in this work. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit of that story that led you from that kind of very traditional doctor into this incredible work you do now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been the type A achiever. I've always been that girl that I leaned on my intellect for everything. Everything was the mind, even when I went to medical school. And then I burnt myself out pretty good. I almost quit my third year. Not everybody knows that. But
wow. Yeah, really burned out.
There where I was like, oh God, I don't think I can do this anymore. And this was in naturopathic school, where they teach you to take care of your mind and your body.
Gosh.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But best you can with that kind of workload. And then, and then I had a spiritual awakening while I was in medical school. I learned about things like Reiki. I was involved in some of the Native American communities and things like Sweat Lodge. And some of their ceremonies. So I learned this whole other energy that was behind healing that they just don't have time to really teach you in school. They have to teach you the sciences and how to diagnose and treat. So when I got out of school, I first did my residency in Hawaii, which was another awakening. And then I came to New England, which is the northeast of the United States. And here I became... I did a 5-year apprenticeship with a shaman. And then it all changed.
Just before you, which I'm dying to hear more about that, but would you say that kind of first spiritual awakening you had, did that occur because of the rupture created by the burnout? Or was it just sort of happening alongside it? Can you see was there a relationship between the two, would you say?
Well, truth be told, when I was growing up, so I lived in the Fort Lauderdale area of Florida until I was 29. And it's a very sunshine and alcohol culture. Mm-hmm. It's a very, endless summer. So I was sort of, straight A student, surgical tech by day, and hardcore party girl by night. Mm-hmm. And I really towed that edge in ways that is a conversation for another time. But what happened was I went out to school and I or medical school, and it was like, all right, now you got to get serious. And I went like, oh shit, like the life I've lived this whole time isn't going to work. And I don't have time for it. And I need to grow up and like I had no ocean. I was in Arizona now and I had been used to the beach all the time. So it was just absolute shock in all the ways. And I had a few moments of like, I can't live the life I used to live anymore. And I don't mean just the partying. I mean, ignoring my inner self. I didn't really get it yet. And the ocean had been sort of my church and my God. Yeah. And then to be without it in the desert, I was just bereft. And I had to find a way to find God in other ways. And when I asked for that to be shown to me, they just came plopping in like, woof, here we go. Like, here's a new way that's going to rock your world, girl.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Did you have that moment where you consciously said, in one way or another, like, show God to me in other ways? Or was it just shown to you?
Well, it was a little curiosity. You know, some friends were talking about energy and how some of the students that had graduated were invited into Sweat Lodge, and sort of like, well, if you get aligned with it, if you mind your P's and Q's, that might happen for you too. And I was like, I really want to experience everything the desert has to offer.
Yeah.
And I realized, there was a lot I didn't know, and I wasn't going to learn it from my anatomy textbook.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So it was a real, what I sometimes call those kind of little breadcrumbs that our soul kind of leaves for us, and you feel a little tug, and it doesn't necessarily have to make any logical sense. We just feel it.
Absolutely. And it can be curiosity. It can be turn on. Like there's a lot of reasons that we follow the crumbs.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. So shamanism.
Yes. So quick version, you dig it all out, your ancestry, you learn it all. You're turned inside out and you become a new person in the process of those 5 years. And during that, I discovered that I'm a medical intuitive. I can see inside bodies, and very, very accurately. And I even tried to make a little bit of a career out of that at one point while I was doctoring. And I think I freaked some people out.
Wow.
It was not seamless. It was not contradictory, but there was some conflict there for sure. People wanted me to do a test, make a diagnosis, create a treatment, the classic medical, even though it was natural medicine. And once I realized so much more was going on in the body, existentially, soul-wise, soul family-wise, I could no longer lean on things like, well, let's just test your vitamin D or see if you're allergic to gluten. That became so mundane and not the point.
Yeah. Is it a point at all? Would you say, is there a place for those things?
Sure. I mean, we do need specific vitamins and minerals for the electrical system of the body to work properly, for hormones to remain balanced. So it's a yes and situation. But I think when we lean on them too much, it becomes wait, I really want to look in the blood test corner, not the what's really going on corner.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I meant. Sorry, I didn't mean like, do we need vitamins or not, but more like as a sort of route of inquiry, do you feel that if we go into the kind of the deep stuff, the soul stuff, the ancestral stuff, does that naturally lead us to, I guess, address things like deficiencies and allergies? Does that kind of get taken care of and sort of swept up in it rather than having to go there directly?
I think yes, but it's not that quantifiable. So if someone has a true chronic disease, that they would need both, to kind of monitor the body as you're doing the deeper work, depending on the person. Most of my clients are fairly healthy now, and it's a lot of fine tuning and how you want to expand and do more on your mission versus like my body's a complete wreck.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But I do believe that if the body is functioning properly from an energetic standpoint, a lot of the shame has been removed. What I call the armor has been removed. The gut works better. The hormones balance, like the bones get stronger. They just do.
Yeah, that really does make sense. Wonderful. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I suddenly thought, it'd be really interesting to see if you still see there is a place for that, or actually you're now, I mean, certainly again, I guess your clients have changed. Just in terms of who you work with and why has changed.
Well, it's funny. I think we all do this on our journey with our own medicine and art and genius. It's like, well, who am I to serve next? It's sort of like, well, that temple has happened and we sweep it out and we create the new one. Like, I really do believe the divine always refreshes our journey.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. In fact, we were talking just before we started recording about the way that our clients seem to kind of come in a wave of story where we see similar patterns and then we get another wave of the story. And it blows my mind how that happens. And you were sharing how you're seeing at the moment a kind of a particular, I guess, level of success that your female clients in particular have reached and how that's showing up. So I don't know if it's like too abrupt to suddenly go there, or if you want to weave our way there, you choose.
Well, I think, and social media has kind of helped this bloom in me. There's so much shame in what's really going on for people. And even the word shame has shame,
Yes.
And it's so funny. At higher levels of success, a woman doesn't identify with the word shame. She's like, I've tackled that. Thank you very much. And I don't wish to go back there. Like, we're done here.
Yeah.
But then
oh my gosh, I can so recognize that in me. A couple of years ago, I think I very much would have felt the same, almost like, I've done that work. And then, like we were saying earlier, it's kind of as soon as you say, I'm done, like, you're going to be shown when you're really not done.
Yeah. And then here comes another piece of something that looks different now because your eyes are different.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question all the way, though.
I didn't ask a particularly great question, I don't think. So we were talking about this, the way that you're, I guess, first and foremost, what really inspired you to change direction and deepen into this more shamanic way of working, where you were seeing there's ways of, I guess, illnesses, symptoms showing up and what was really going on. And now how increasingly you're seeing that's actually mapped to, I guess, levels of expansion or where people are in their success. And so I guess pick up at any point in there where you think might be a helpful place for us to kind of start that journey into understanding that.
Well, I started to observe over time in medicine. And then once I left medicine and went into more of what I do now, that there's a specific set of symptoms that women experience at high levels of success. They just do, and some of it is burnout, some of it is things like tired, very, nondescript. I'm tired of being tired is what, a lot of people say, but some women, they just know how to override that. They've gotten to the point where they can control their nervous system and they can eke out another, liter of energy anytime they really, really have to, but the crashes get worse. Or the crashes are unexpected. Like, I feel completely fine, but then I had a panic attack. What happened? Or not even, doesn't have to be panic attack. It can be like every time I make a huge amount of money, I get in a massive fight with my husband and like, we have a great relationship. What the hell's going on? It's this contraction of sorts that we want to learn to never happen again. And it's not really that way. There's changes within the body, within the energy centers, especially if a woman has a lot of sort of intuitive or psychic abilities, like the clairs, like clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. The body changes as those gifts open. So those of us that do what we call like either channeling work or just really high levels of consciousness, if we want to talk brain waves, this is beyond your sort of normal consciousness up into gamma. This is where like your whole brain seems to sync up and it all gets clear, and you can feel the divine is talking through you and your genius is flowing, those flow states. The body has to change to accommodate that. And we're just not taught how to do it. It's not about becoming superhuman and working out until you're hugely buff. It isn't that. It's an inner thing that happens with a woman about being a woman.
Oh, wow. I love this. Would you say that, so I'm trying to map this over my experience over the last few years, and specifically a couple of years ago, was where I really, I guess for the first time, kind of consciously chose into that, those aspects of my being, those gifts, I guess, that I'd kind of really done my best to keep shoved down all of my life, to varying degrees of success. And then this year again, it's felt like I've experience another level of opportunity with that. And the thing I'm trying to piece together from what you're saying is how that has shown up in my body, because it's not something that I'm really present to, but simultaneously I have also been on a journey where I'm do huge amounts of embodiment work. So would it be that because those two things have happened simultaneously, I've almost been doing the work to kind of expand my system simultaneously, therefore it's not been experienced as kind of, issues, whether that be emotional or physical?
It could be. It's interesting because I have found that if I name very specific symptoms, women usually, and I don't mean this is you, but I get a lot of like, well, I don't have those, so this isn't happening with me. Mm-hmm. And that might be true. That could be true because you and I don't know each other that well. But at the same time, what I find is our soul path is always to bring love where love has been missing. Everybody's path is that.
Yeah.
Just in their different ways is how they bring it. So what will happen in the body is wherever the body is unable to hold love, unable to hold more life force, more God, however you want to call it, those areas will start to broadcast a little differently. It doesn't always have to be physical pain or exhaustion. It can feel like a limiting belief or some kind of roadblock in what you want, and it's held in escrow by the body. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm just thinking this year in particular, I've had a lot of, deep shifts around my heart and experience emotions, sadness in particular, that I've literally not experienced at all, certainly in my conscious memory. So would you say that could be a way that it shows up?
The heart is everything. Absolutely everything. And I find that if a woman wants to heal her heart, it's often a temptation to go right for it, like right zoom, like a arrow into the heart. Let's heal the heart. But the body as a whole needs to be kind of disarmored before the heart will let you in. Mm-hmm. So if you are unable to see like through the eyes of your soul path, the heart will not open. If you're unable to hear like the voice of God in your ear or a healthy masculine God in your ear, the heart will not open. So it's never compartmentalized to really just like one organ or one system. It's can you open to God in all the ways?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think again, when I think back through my journey over the years, it very much has been that kind of de-armoring of other things came first until I was ready for the heart, which so makes sense. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of like place it in my own experience before we went any further, but what you're saying makes so much sense. So what other ways would you see this showing up with women typically?
Definitely in relationships with men. It can be with a husband, it can be with a coworker, father, brother, because women at our highest creational vibration, we are like a cauldron, like a womb, or the word void can make a lot of sense here. For us to be that open to what? To penetration. And it doesn't have to always be sexual intercourse. It can be the penetration of your intuition on how to make your next step. The intuition on the how is more the masculine, and the intuition on how you feel and your desire is more the feminine. So, what do women really want when they come to see me? A lot of it is to get the body on board, but the other part is like, I want to be able to use my intuition with such precision that the how of my next step is crystal clear all the way up. And for us to truly, truly open, our relationship to men and money has to change. And that feels like, oh gosh, here's another fork in the road in our conversation.
No, it's all good. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I'm guessing that, just as we were saying right at the beginning, a lot of this does have its roots in our parenting, particularly our relationship. Yeah. And our relationship with our father, and therefore men, and therefore money. But I'd love to hear I don't want to kind of assume what you mean. Please share your sense of this.
Yeah, I do believe that modern feminism had its place. We women needed to have certain rights to vote, to own land, to have money, and all the things, sovereignty over our bodies. These were crucial bits in history. However, what it has done more long term is tried to get women to not need a man, to live without a man, and to make them obsolete. And I think that that's where it has become a disservice. Not just in like, hey, I can't open this jar. And the things that we ask men for in the mundane, but the more existential, to fully be penetrated by God and open as a woman. And here's where it gets funny, because not every woman is into men. So the conversation sounds a little heteronormative. And it is, because we women, we are cauldrons. We are to be penetrated by God, by the divine. And when we can submit to that level of opening, the genius that comes through us, that can then ripple out and help humanity. This is a really big part of what I think we're here for. So to just kind of backtrack a little bit, how do we allow ourselves to receive? And the word receive is so sort of oversaid in a lot of the online coaching world. But truly, what about being receptive as a woman and not always picking up your sword and saying, I got this, get out of my way. It's quicker if I do it. Which is kind of what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So interesting seeing how our closure to men is also our closure to masculinity, which is also our closure to God. And it's when we're able to see, like, that's what we've ended up closing to, and the ramifications of that, like, oh, okay, maybe that's a conversation I would like to take more seriously. But of course, through this, again, our cultural conditioning that, no, it's a good thing to not need a man. It's very difficult, I think, for women to even be open to what they're choosing out of without being able to do the work to open. So I'm trying to, listeners to this show are, I think, in general, going to be fairly open to the conversation we're having. We've had lots and lots of conversations about things like polarity. We've had Alison Armstrong on. So we've had lots of really amazing conversations about the things we're talking about here, which I think, again, are true regardless of your sexuality. Again, this is really more about masculinity than it is about women and men necessarily. And yet, for us women, regardless whether we are into men sexually, there are going to be men in our lives, again, not least our father. And so I'd love to hear your take on, I guess, and then maybe this also links into what you're talking about, kind of our ancestral work that we can do through the lens of shamanism. Like, what does that work look like? How do we open to having a healthy relationship to men, and therefore masculinity, and therefore God?
Well, I really think that within each of us is God, and that God has both a mother and a father aspect. So we as women can embody the great mother, but that means we have to receive the great father. And how many women do you know that have some kind of trauma with a man related to her or not? And it's very interesting how the body holds that trauma and will block you from receiving that man until it feels safe and good and right. And what I have found is sort of the ultimate. This actually landed for me about a year ago, and I did a big presentation on it. And when it first landed in my system, I almost threw up. It was so jostling and nauseating. And what the fuck? It is that for us to fully receive God and fully receive the masculine, you have to receive him as father and lover. What I call father, lover, God. For a lot of women, that's really gross.
Yeah, that's a lot to hold.
I mean, in a human way, for the same person to be father and lover is morally wrong. It's gross. It makes you want to, and it's punishable by law, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
But for God to have all the archetypes of man is the full like pantheon, the full spectrum of how God can show up and support you in your life, just as we women relish being all the archetypes. We love being like mother and lover and artist and medicine woman and businesswoman. I mean, you can go on, right? Then how can we restrict God?
Oh my, I love this so much. I'm just laughing to myself at the way that I've managed to rationalize this with a separation. And I can now see like, oh my gosh, it's like I was present to what you're saying, but I hadn't fully illuminated it. So what I'll do is I'll have one conversation and I'll be talking directly to God. And I'll say, you know, often before I go to sleep, I'll lay, as I'm kind of dropping off, I'll say, you know, thank you, Father, for this and that and whatever it is. There'll be a practice I'll do as I'm dropping off to sleep. And so in that case, it's fine for God to be Father. And then I have a different practice where I refer to the divine masculine. And I very much, and I talk about receiving his penetration. So in that case, it's absolutely fine for him to be a lover, but you can see they're like two different entities, even though they're the same. And I've only just seen how even the languaging, I like two different names, two different ways I'm relating to him. Isn't that like, wow, that's really fascinating. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But that totally makes sense.
For us to hold that is a new way of being as a woman.
Yeah. I feel like I'm having that holy fuck moment that you had a year ago. Wow. Yes. I love that.
Let that
and
land in your body, sister.
I love it and hate it.
Yeah. Like, what if we uncategorized God just as we women do not want to be put in a box? Isn't that only fair?
Wow. Gosh. It was just making me also think how in kind of like BDSM kind of ways of playing, in that instance, it's interesting how clearly it's got edge and taboo in our culture, but you know how you may interchangeably use words like master and daddy. Like it is edgy, but that's kind of like seeing exactly the same, I guess, archetypal energy is possible to be embodied in one man, and yet we're not able to do the same with God. Wow.
But then again, let's take that one step further, because when this, you know, when I finally this came to me from God in meditation one day, and then I was like, am I that fucking kinky? I had to let myself go there in a way that was like, ew, not my dad, you know, but also God is our real father.
Yeah.
Just as the great mother is our real mother. So it was like, I kind of let my father off the hook. A human father, like, oh, well, dad, this has nothing to do with you. Like, you're not, I mean, yes, he's my father that donated body and other things, you know. But it was a huge awakening for me, and to let that land in such a way that I felt held differently by God changed everything. I got more clarity in every way, and the communication and relationship, and then how I treat my body just in my thoughts is different.
Wow. I know it kind of isn't in the words necessarily, and yet words clearly have power and importance. Would you use the word God for both kind of archetypal energies, like whether you're talking to him as a lover or as a father? Would you language that as God?
Yes, but I also use words like my beloved and my darling and my king, you know, and I like to switch it up according to where I'm just at the moment. You know, if we had a pantheon of gods, and I have worked with the Greek gods quite a bit, like, you know, Zeus is more fatherly, whereas Hades, he's like a dirty boy.
Yeah. Yes.
And currently my work is focusing more on more of Apollo energy, like the physician and the oracle. So I think just like anything else in any other religion, or you can think of them as family members, like cousins, who you're going to call different ones for different things. Or it's not a different God, it's a face or a facet of God.
Yeah.
Like I like to say, I'm not the goddess of housekeeping. Don't ever call me for that.
Yeah. We can opt out for some, for sure. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. And I think it's from that place of seeing, he's both. In fact, he's all things. And I think there is then, it feels like it's coming from a different place to then choose different names, different facets, but it comes from a conscious place of, and I see that he is all. I can really see there's power in that versus what I was doing, where I had this kind of, I would have agreed with you, but I was definitely almost holding God and divine masculine as separate because it was easier for my system to kind of relate to them as to, even though I would have said, well, they're kind of the same, but I was definitely relating very separately to them.
And if we want to take that even one more step further, it's to remember that this is always inside you. This is you with you. It's not even a separate thing outside that you become dependent upon. It's like, this is my God self that has a masculine aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Okay, we've definitely gone down a very gorgeous rabbit hole. We've gone down a rabbit hole. So I'm just kind of circling back up again to have a look at the landscape. Like, which rabbit hole should we go down next? So we were, I feel like this may seem really left field, but I'm going to trust that it's come up for a reason. With like specific or those almost like mystery illnesses, let's say, the ones that have that kind of collection of symptoms that are called names, but have always had that kind of like, is it really that, or is there something deeper going on? So for example, like fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue. I don't really have like a brilliantly kind of specific question. It just came up in my awareness. Like, I, in the past, suffer from chronic pain. And I have people in my life, as I'm sure most people do, that have had, have chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia. And so I just feel like I just want to ask you to speak about that and what you've seen about that and how that links to perhaps other deeper things. Is that a specific enough question?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take fibromyalgia as one because it's, kind of in the field now. And so I studied it from more than one angle. I studied it as a medical student, as a doctor. And what I found physically was that people that had fibromyalgia most likely had a fungal infection in the body that was fairly hidden. It could have been more parasitic. It could have been a little more like candida. But there was definitely a pathogen in the body that was disrupting everything, the pH, the digestion, all. In addition, people with fibromyalgia usually have metals, meaning arsenic, cadmium, mercury, lead, one of those big ones. And that can come from all kinds of things, birth control pills, smoking, pesticides, whatever. So that's the medical piece. So we link that with what's going on otherwise. And I make little nicknames for diseases, like fibromyalgia is the don't touch me disease. It hurts to be hugged when you have fibromyalgia. So, I firmly believe that if we were to break what is disease down into its finest points, it's where we do not allow God into the body. And the Chinese have a really interesting way of calling it, qi, which is life force. The qi is blocked. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of talking about it. So yes, you can apply acupuncture needles and you can unblock the qi in that specific area. But why doesn't that last? Has always been the question. Why does the patient feel amazing for 3 days? And then they're like, ow, it hurts again, or something else. It's because the pattern underlying hadn't changed. So to me, it's like, yep, these tests are great. Acupuncture is fantastic. But if there were no emotions, there would be no disease. So you have to look there.
Yeah. And what would that work typically look like, if there is a typical type of work that you would do? If, for example, you had a client with fibromyalgia, what would that work that you would do with them look like?
Well, part of what I do with my clients is psychic surgeries. I've got different names for them. There's wealth surgery and other surgeries. So what I do is I look deeply inside the body, and it tells me a story. It tells me exactly why it's blocked, and it tells me the medicine that will unblock it. And those are always the same thing. Meaning like cures like.
Ah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So, some people have some pretty deep-seated childhood traumas that come right back around. Even like the richest millionaires I know, same thing. Nobody wants to hear this part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there has to be an investigation of like, where have you felt rejected by God? Where have you felt that God has forsaken you? And it usually starts by the time you're 5. Some people by the time you're 8 or 10. Mm-hmm. So, I don't exactly come out and say, hey, I do all this inner child work, but this is where it goes eventually. And each one of us has specific beliefs according to what we think we can have.
Yeah. So can I just back up slightly before we go here? When you say those places have been abandoned by God, I'm guessing typically that would be made conscious through the lens of like where we've been abandoned by parents. Like that would normally be the mechanism through which we would have felt the abandonment of God.
That can also be, some kids, their worst rejection was something that happened on the playground.
Okay.
And it can be like that friend that you thought would always be your friend, or it can be a boyfriend. So, but then that always does link back to parents eventually. The initial lens, though, can be a little bit more of our peers.
As an initial thing we uncover, but then ultimately, yeah. I always remember I spoke to someone on a podcast years ago, a functional health specialist, and we were talking about trauma, and he's saying, even if it's, I don't know, a trauma that created the particular condition, I don't know, age 12, it was kind of, how can I say it? The conditions for that had its roots earlier, and which that made so much sense. So it's kind of, it almost always is something that happened in those early years, even if there was a kind of almost like a kind of repeat of it in some way later on. Is that what you typically see?
Yes, and we can categorize these as sort of soul wounds. And I don't usually love to use the word wound, but it illustrates things so very well. We come in to learn very specific lessons. We're templated that way. Mm-hmm. And the path is, can you bring love where love is missing, even with that around? That is the big challenge.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. So when you're doing those surgeries with people, as you say, there's a kind of commonality between all of them that ultimately it's that kind of place that love, they weren't loved, and there is, can you bring love to it? Is that something that you do as part of the surgery, or is that something they then work on with you to kind of bring that love there?
I would say that's a part of the process. The work that I mainly do is to help them to open. I find where it's blocked. I find where we are armored against the masculine, especially. Mm-hmm. We women have been taught to armor against men from the beginning. From being little tiny girls in our pigtails and dirt on our face, and from the very beginning. So to undo 40 years of conditioning, and then somebody said or did something, this person assaulted. It's like this, we remove the armor and we open, and then the love comes in. And a lot of time, there's not a lot of work to get the love in. It's like, well, you just remove the dam. And then it's already there. Abundance just is. You don't have to necessarily go looking for it. You just have to open to it. And that can be the hardest part, because we can't see our own blocks.
Yes, for sure. So that leads me really nicely to my next question. For people listening that aren't necessarily going to be with you having that kind of surgery and that like specificity of this is where the blockage is and then the opening, what would you suggest? Like what's a kind of path in that direction to uncovering those things?
Well, I think first, there's a radical level of honesty that has to come in. And this is usually where women actually get very, very excited. Just to see what the blocks actually are, ways in which men are actually trying to give to you or serve you, or money's trying to come to you, or God's been like tapping on your head and you're like, I don't know, maybe I should pull another oracle card. The honesty is always first, and it can either be, there's a whole spectrum here. It can be really easy, like, oh my gosh, I think I already knew that. There it is again. All right. Or it can be, like, no. I've seen both ends there. So the question I would always ask a woman to come to is, where do you feel like you're failing? Because most women feel like they're failing somewhere. That's where you're not letting God in. That's where you're not letting truth in. What if the universe is always conspiring to serve you? What if your body is always in a state of repair and coming back to homeostasis, and abundance is really all around you? What if all of that is true? Then you have to look at where you have denied that to yourself. And we can be super kinky about this. Some of us like love to hate. We just love to hate. We love to hate this. We love to hate where we're at. We love to hate Donald Trump. We love to hate something. So where are you blocking the abundance and the God that already is?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah. And then from that place of having inquired, what would you suggest?
I usually have a woman dive into what does she feel was shameful about herself when she was young. For instance, when I was a little girl, I thought I was a complete sadistic wacko because I liked to take apart bugs and I poked at dead animals on the street. And I liked to see inside bodies even then.
Oh,
I thought that was super weird about me. I loved dissection. I loved cadaver lab. I loved it all. And I thought, like, God, I'm so weird. Even though I was a doctor. I love the gory movies, all of that stuff. Well, now I do this for a living with just my mind. So there is a genius for every one of us that is God-given and singular. And it's almost always related to something you shamed yourself for when you were young.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And then I guess from there, not that it's necessarily easy, but that's the place to bring the love. Absolutely.
There's a level of full, unbridled approval. And if you can find that, if you don't want me giving like a quick little exercise that your listeners can do,
please do. Yeah.
Like a 72 hour, and I always give like little prescriptions of 72 hours of something. So 72 hours of full fucking approval of everything in your life. Because guess what? If you have it, you wanted it at some point.
Yeah.
So like I approve of this tea and my sweater and that candle. It can be mundane like that, but it can be bigger things. I approve of where I live, of how many children I have, of the man next to me. That can change your life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think we, when we chatted last time, I was talking about having Carolyn Elliott on the show and, her, really finding the pleasure, the kinky pleasure in the things we don't want. And I think, I typically use the language of approval like you do, but I think anything where we really see our, ultimately creative potential, like, wow, I created all of this. I chose this. So, why the hell wouldn't I approve of it? I love that.
It's told not to.
Yes, completely. And we're shown that it's bizarrely better to be a victim to the things that we don't want.
Yes, that's glorified, isn't it? Like sacrifice and victimhood is glorified. Getting everything you want is considered bullshit.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, like fantasy, dream world stuff.
What would happen if every woman that listened to this went and approved of herself for 3 whole days? In all the ways, even her cellulite, even like her breath in the morning, even like all the things that we really don't frickin' like. What would change about you, and how much more God would you let into your system if you approved of yourself for just 3 days?
Yeah. I love the doctorly, like 72 hours as well.
Yeah. I bring it all back to that. It's how I'm trained. Yeah.
But, no, I love that. I love that.
But it works. You know, there's a changeover of the biochemistry in 3 days. So a little one and then a really big one in 90 days. So you just extend it. And then next thing you know, it's like, all the answers I'm looking for. Oh my goodness. And my stress level's better, and my sleep. And I like my husband more.
Actually, that's so interesting you just said that, because I've noticed twice in a row this year a significant shift happen around something at a 3-month mark, and it's happened twice. And it's to the point where I was just like, that is incredible. To the day, it just noticed this big shift happen on something that had been really difficult. Would you say that's what's happened? It is a literal kind of shift that happens after 90 days.
Biochemistry takes time to change. And like I was saying in the beginning, like the body has to catch up with the mind. The body has to catch up with the change and the energy, and the matter needs a minute. So like as a doctor, I would not do blood work every month unless it was like something like a vitamin level. But if you want to look at like liver, kidneys, and red and white blood cells, you give them 3 months. Then you look at them.
Makes so much sense. Yeah, it makes so much sense. But again, it's so interesting how we can see that through the lens of kind of, traditional, health, and this is how it works, but not when it comes to kind of like emotional shifts or expansions into a new way of being. I love that.
Well, part of that is our culture. It's like, are you going to do it now or not?
And then it's kind of like, because you've decided it, like your whole system should be there.
Right. And then we're like, damn it, body, why aren't you doing what I said?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Completely. That's really helped actually, just hearing that, because it was kind of spooky, in like twice in a row, it happened at the 3-month mark. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. And then it happened the second time. And I was like, there's something here that I don't understand. So yeah. Wow. So we're almost out of time. Before we, I just love all the kind of varying places we've gone with this. It's been gorgeous. Is there anything that you think would be helpful that you just didn't get a chance to share, or I didn't get a chance to ask you, that you would like to leave listeners with?
I think that we as women have a chance to reclaim our birthright as being in high receptivity, and to also be the bearers of genius. I think that for our world to go in the direction that we really want it to after quarantine and all the changes that have happened, that women need to work side by side with men. We cannot make them obsolete. We cannot rule the world by ourselves. We have to learn what it is like in the body to become a woman who really likes herself. And not just like, oh, self-love, but like finding pleasure in the mundane in your life. You will be a different mama. Like money will be attracted to you. It really comes back down to embodying pure femininity. And I know I wasn't taught that. So like there's no shame in not knowing what the hell that even means just yet. It can mean a different thing for each woman. Like, not every woman wants to go to work, and not every woman wants to stay home with their babies. Let your life be crafted by you and God.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you. If listeners would like to find out more about you and your gorgeous work, which I'm sure they will, where could they go and find you?
I'm at stephaniasciamano.com, or you can find me in the Wealth Medicine Facebook group.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been absolute delight. And it's one of those shows where I've got a lot out of this personally myself, which is always I always feel like a kind of bit of guilty pleasure in those. Like I shouldn't get something out of the show. So when I do, I'm like, yay. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow, I love that. I adore how Dr. Stephania shows up. Here are my takeaways. Spend time contemplating the inquiry. Where in your life are you blocking the flow of what you say you want? What did you feel shame about as a child? This is likely to correlate or provide a deep clue to your genius. And this is where you'll need to open to receive love. Spend 72 hours bringing full approval to yourself and everything in your life and see what that creates in your life. If you'd like to get the notes and links for everything we spoke about this week, hop on over to the show notes and they're at primalhappiness.co/episode 303. And if you're feeling called to the path of waking the wild medicine, if 2021 is the year you will embody and express your deepest soul work, a great place to start is to come and join us for our live Q&A webinar on the topic of money, magic, and medicine. We'll be going deep, answering all your questions about how you can make a living being your medicine, doing your deepest soul work. It's on Friday, the 4th of December at 11 a.m. GMT. You can get all the details to join in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/primalhappiness, or just email us at support@primalhappiness.co and we'll send you back all the details you need. Or if you know you're ready for Waking the Wild Medicine, if you know this is the path for you, then go claim your place now at primalhappiness.co/medicine. If you don't want to miss out on next week's episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, or your Android or iOS app of choice and hit subscribe. That way you'll get each episode automatically delivered straight to your device as soon as it's released. Thank you so much for listening. You've been wonderful. Catch you again next Tuesday.